never mistake the way you give me my faith. My body feels safe in your hands. Feel me fully fade.
The next point that we need to study and take up for your MCQ exam is regarding the cold chain. What is cold chain? See, India is a big country. You have Jammu Kashmir, you have areas in Telangana, you have Tamil Nadu, you have Kerala, you have cold areas and hot areas. So cold chain is basically a mechanism. It is a mechanism to maintain temperature, to maintain the temperature. So how much temperature do we want to maintain? So at the peripheral areas where the vaccines are being used, we want to maintain the temperature from plus 2 degrees to plus 8 degrees. Please remember, it is plus 2 to plus 8, it is not in the negative. If we want to store, so the storage temperature at the district level or at the national level or at the zonal level or in the state level, you want to store vaccines, the storage of the vaccine should be ranging between minus 15 to minus 25 degrees Celsius. So that is for the storage. So the mechanism for maintaining the temperature is called as the cold chain. It is one of the weakest areas and it is also one of the strongest areas of the whole immunization program. Why do I say weakest? Because this is one of the most vulnerable area because to maintain the temperature, right? And why do I say it is the strongest? Because India has a very robust mechanism. So that is question number 1. Question number 2 is, what do you mean by a cold chain? We just now taught that it is for maintenance of the temperature, maintain the temperature for the vaccine. Second is, what do you mean by the reverse cold chain? Please note, reverse cold chain is also from 2 to 8 degrees Celsius and it is to transport. It is for transportation of the stool samples for the AFP surveillance. For the AFP surveillance, a transportation of the stool samples. What do you mean by the warm chain? It is to maintain the temperature of the baby. So baby temperature maintenance is called as the warm chain. As the baby comes out of the mother, you need to cover it, then wait again, you need to cover it and hand it back to the mother. So this maintenance of the warm chain is going to help in child survival. Early neonatal or early child survival is what is warm chain. So today's topic is about the cold chain. Topic number 1, what are the components of the cold chain or what are the equipments which are used in the cold chain? So that is your topic number 1, big topic, that what are the components of the cold chain. The first component that you need to study is we can have a day carrier or we can have a vaccine carrier or we can have a cold box. We can also have ILRs, ice-lined refrigerators, or we can have the deep freezers, or we can have the WICR, that is walk-in cold rooms or walk-in freezers. So what did I say? WICR, walk-in cold rooms, that is WICR, or walk-in freezers is WIF, or we can have the WICR, that is walk-in cold rooms. So these are some of the equipments that you need to study. MCQs on each one of them. Common sense, which of the following equipments will use electricity? It is a basic common sense. Obviously, these are the equipments which will use the electrical energy. So you need electricity for the ice-lined refrigerators, for the deep freezers, for the walk-in cold rooms, and of course, common sense, you don't need electricity for the day carriers, vaccine carriers, and cold box. Question number 2 in this topic. Each thing is going to carry how many vaccines? If you talk about the day carriers, beta, it is for 6 to 8 vaccines maximum it can carry. So anything below 6 to 8 vaccines we can put in a day carrier. In a vaccine carrier, 16 to 20 vaccines can be there. 16 to 20 vial vaccines can carry. The cold box is anything 25 to 30 vaccine vials. So cold box is something which is like a bigger vaccine carrier. You can't move around the cold box, right? Cold box will stay as it is. So usually for larger immunization campaigns or for larger immunization sessions, we can put our vaccine vials, our vials in the cold box. Then as ice-lined refrigerator, it is a simple refrigerator, and we are going to talk about that. So if you just look at the day carriers, the day carriers can further be classified into two types. We can have a standard day carrier, which are like this. So you have a day carrier A and a B. So if you look at the day carriers, these are standard day carriers where you can see that the ice pack, can you see that the ice pack is there just open? Can you see that the ice pack is just openly placed inside the vaccine carrier, and within this yellow colored mark which I have made, you put in the vaccines. Now the problem with this type of a standard vaccine carrier is that some vaccines may touch the ice pack. So if they are touching the ice pack, they may get spoiled. So this is one vaccine carrier. I'm not saying it's bad or good, but this is just one type which we use in Government of India. There are another improvised version of the vaccine carrier. These are called as freeze-resistant vaccine carriers. So what are freeze-resistant vaccine carrier? You see on the screen the image type B that you see over here, that there is a kind of a block over here. Can you see that there is a freeze resistant? So the ice packs will have pockets, and within that pocket you put the ice pack, and then there is a vaccine vial pocket. So you put the vials where? Of course you put the vials here in this vaccine vial pocket. So this is called as a freeze resistant vaccine carriers or day carriers. So these are the smaller vaccine carriers and day carriers. Day carriers are very small, like 6 to 8 vaccine. Vaccine carriers can also be bigger ones, which can carry 16-20 vaccine vials. So coming to these components back again, a few questions you might be asked about the ice-lined refrigerator. If you talk about the ILR, ILR stands for ice-lined refrigerator. The ice-lined refrigerator is something like a box. The box that we see what the ice cream wallas, they will have the box, right? So the ice cream vendors, they will have that box. Don't think that the box which has a slider. Think of a box which opens like this. So of course it looks like, maybe you're thinking of a deep freezer. It looks like a deep freezer, but the temperature in ice-lined, it's a refrigerator. There are water channels, there are tubes on the walls of the ILR, and it keeps the ILR cool. Very simple to understand. So in this ILR, if you just look at this ILR, there is a top lid. So this is the lid. It opens from the top. That's what is your understanding, right? That's what I want you to understand. Which area is the coolest area? Please note that the area which is at the bottom, right? If you want the best ice cream, you want the ice cream which is from deep inside the ILR, right? You don't want the ice cream which is at the top, because common sense, you're opening it and closing it. So the top area will get spoiled, right? So now this is what is the understanding, that which is the coolest area. The coolest area in the ice-lined refrigerator is usually the bottom. And then above side, I'm not saying it is warm, but it is less cool. It is less cool. The temperature will always range within this ILR between 2 to 8 degrees centigrade. Okay, so that is one understanding. So if you understand this, please note that in ice-lined refrigerator, what are you going to put? We are always going to put the vaccines. So first is we are going to put the vaccines. Which vaccines do you think you're going to put in the bottom shelf? In the bottom shelf, please note that this area is the coolest area. So in the bottom shelf, you would like to put what? The heat-sensitive vaccine or the freeze-sensitive vaccine. Please remember, we are going to put the heat-sensitive vaccine. We are going to put the heat-sensitive. And in the top area, which is kind of less cool. So in this area, you're going to put which vaccine? The heat-sensitive or the freeze-sensitive? We are going to put the freeze-sensitive vaccine. So that was point 1 regarding the vaccine. Point number 2. How do you measure the temperature in the ice-lined refrigerator? We have something called as a dial thermometer. We have a dial thermometer. So what does dial thermometer look like? Dial thermometer is a circular thing which will have some readings from -10, -8 till +10. So +10 or +50, -10 or -50, different dial thermometers are there. So this temperature is going to give you a recording. So from +2 to plus 8 degrees centigrade. This is always the green zone. So the needle should always be between the green zone. And this is placed where in a ILR? In a ILR, it should be placed where? It should be placed at the bottom or in the center or in the top. Where do you want to place? Please note that the dial thermometer is always in the middle. It is always in the middle, because if you put it in the top, don't you think that it will always show some temperature, but whatever temperature is showing, the lowest area will be less than 2. If you put it in the bottom, whatever temperature it shows, the top area will always be more than 8. There is a chance, right? So you always keep the dial thermometer in the middle. So that is one point. Second, talking about dial thermometer, you put in a ILR and you should check about the dial thermometer reading. How many times? Once in a day, once in 2 days, 3 days, 5 days. What do you want to say? Please note that the ILR, we do the dial thermometer temperature reading at least twice a day. Twice a day, the temperature reading is done and it is always recorded. You have to record the temperature reading at least twice a day in the ice-lined refrigerator. These are two important MCQs about ILR. MCQ number 3, beta. That's about the ILR back again. If you just look at the components of the cold chain again, this ice-lined refrigerator, what do you think is at what level? What do you think? Will it be at the PHC, at the sub-center, at the CHC or the district hospital or the chief minister hospital? What do you want to say? Please note that ILR is at any level where the immunization is taking place. At the immunization center, the ILR will be there. That immunization center could be a PHC, a primary center, or it could be CHC, or it could be the district hospital. So now try to understand the point that I want you to make is that there is no storage of the vaccine in ILR. And the ILR needs electricity. So for how much time do you think the ILR can sustain without electricity? Please note that ILR needs minimum 8 hours of electricity per 24 hours to maintain the vaccine efficacy of 2 to 8 hours. So this can be again MCQ, that how much is the minimum ILR time temperature, the electricity temperature, the electricity for the maintenance of the temperature in ILR should be 8 hours for every 24 hours. Next, another point for ILR is that in ILR, are you going to store vaccines, or where are you going to store vaccines? Will it be at the deep freezers? Please note, I would like to make a big point, special point over here, that deep freezers are never going to store the vaccine. What is the temperature in a deep freezer? Beta, the deep freezer is a freezer. Freezer is how much temperature? It is less than 0 degrees Celsius. So you cannot store a vaccine in a deep freezer, at least at the peripheral centers. So deep freezers, what is the use of the deep freezers? Next point is regarding the deep freezer. Deep freezer is available at the CHCs or the district hospital. It is only means it's always only for making the ice packs. It is for manufacturing or making the ice packs, or for freezing the ice packs. Please always note, it is always for making the ice packs or freezing the ice packs. In certain situations in districts with heavy load, or in cases of polio outbreaks or things like this, where we want to have the polio immunization centers, so in those cases we can store OPV vaccines in this. But always the OPV vaccine storage deep freezer should be different from a freezing ice pack deep freezer. So store OPV vaccine can be done only at district levels. It can be done only at district levels, and this is in a separate deep freezer. What is next MCQ? What is the temperature in a deep freezer? The temperature of storage in a deep freezer could range between -15 to -25 degrees centigrade, because you want to make the ice packs or freeze the ice packs. So that's what is a basic understanding, that ice-lined refrigerator will be at all the immunization centers. Deep freezer, what is the function of a deep freezer? It is to make or the freeze ice packs. So ice packs are always made in the deep freezer. What is the role of the WICR? So please note that WICR that is the walk-in cold rooms or the walk-in freezers. These are bigger walk-in cold rooms or bigger freezers, and their role is only for storage. At what level will we have the walk-in cold rooms? Common sense, they will be at district levels or at state levels or zonal levels, but usually the single best answer for your exam should be district levels. So these are a couple of few MCQs that I have tried to discuss regarding the components of a cold chain. The next point you need to understand is topic number 2 regarding the sensitivity of vaccines. Beta, please note that there might be some vaccines which we call as the heat sensitive vaccine, or we might have some vaccines which are freeze sensitive vaccine, right? So heat sensitive vaccines are the polio vaccines, that is the oral polio vaccine, and it is also the measles vaccine. If you talk about the freeze sensitive vaccine, the freeze sensitive is hepatitis B vaccine, the pentavalent vaccine, the pneumococcal conjugate vaccines. See, basically what I want to say is if you just look at them slightly in detail, there could be heat sensitive and there could be a freeze sensitive vaccine. If you talk about the oral polio vaccine, it is the most heat sensitive vaccine. It is not freeze sensitive. On the other hand, if we talk about the measles vaccine or the measles and rubella vaccine, please note it is highly heat sensitive and it is also a light sensitive vaccine. Okay, but if you get single best answer, please note the measles rubella is a heat sensitive vaccine. There could be another MCQ that what are the other vaccines that we need to talk about. The other vaccine could be the BCG vaccine. We can have the rotavirus vaccine. We can talk about the Japanese encephalitis vaccine. Please note that these vaccines are again, they are heat sensitive, but they are more light sensitive. If you get single best answer, the BCG vaccine is more light sensitive compared to the heat sensitive. Next in line is you have other vaccines like the pentavalent vaccine. You can talk about the DPT vaccine, the hepatitis B vaccine, the pneumococcal conjugate vaccine, the injectable polio vaccines. These all are freeze sensitive vaccines. Injectable polio vaccine, let us take it as a separate point. Injectable polio vaccine is one which is freeze sensitive and heat sensitive both. So this could be slightly more in detail about the different types. If you just look at the graph over here, can you appreciate that IPV, anything which is more towards my right side is more freeze sensitive and anything which goes to the top is again heat sensitive. So you can see that IPV is both a freeze sensitive and heat sensitive. Can you find somewhere on this graph about the pentavalent vaccine? You can see that the pentavalent vaccine is kind of freeze sensitive, not so much heat sensitive. But look at this hepatitis A, hepatitis B and the TD vaccines. These are the most, can you see that they are the most freeze sensitive vaccines. If you talk about the heat sensitivity, the vaccine which is on the top, you see that IPV is on the top. You also see that OPV is a very heat sensitive vaccine. So these are some things you would like to remember. Which of the following vaccine is most heat sensitive? Of course, it is the oral polio vaccine and the varicella zoster vaccine. These are very heat sensitive vaccine. So for your exam beta, I would like you to remember that the vaccines could be heat sensitive or they could be freeze sensitive. If you get a question that which of the following vaccine is heat sensitive, I have written over here reconstituted BCG. Please note that if you get in your exam, which is the most, listen very carefully, I'm just trying to avoid the controversy because different books will write down differently. If the question says, beta, direct question, what is the heat sensitive vaccine? Your best answer is OPV. But if the question specifically mentions about the reconstituted BCG, then that becomes as the most heat sensitive. So please remember that reconstituted BCG, if it's there in the option, reconstituted means the BCG was there and you mix it. So if the reconstituted BCG is there in the option, that becomes as one of the most heat sensitive vaccine. And then you have the OPV and then you have the measles. We have already done this line, right? But if you do not get, very less chance you'll get a reconstituted BCG in your options. Please note that the most heat sensitive vaccine under the national program is oral polio vaccine, right? Talking about the freeze sensitivity is maximum due to hepatitis B followed by pentavalent and DPT and TD vaccines. If the examiner gets fussy about it, that which of the following is the most freeze sensitive, you can easily mark the hepatitis B vaccine. This is the most freeze sensitive vaccine. So that's what you need to understand. So if you get this image like this, like in the ILR, which vaccines are kept in the lowest shelf? I already told you, you also discussed with me that in the ILR, what is the vaccine? What is the vaccine which will be kept in the coolest area? We already discussed it is the heat sensitive vaccine. So if I just make a ILR, in ILR, which vaccines will be stored at the bottom shelf? Please note it is the Prime Minister vaccine. I have remembered it this way that the Prime Ministers are always very heat sensitive and they should be kept in the coolest area. So please remember the Prime Minister vaccine is kept in the coolest areas, that is polio and measles. Polio and measles. That is the most heat sensitive vaccines. Then you can have some of the vaccines which are more kind of freeze sensitive. So you remember it was hepatitis B, and we'll store the pentavalent, the TD vaccine, the TT vaccines in this level in the top shelf. Please note that's how it's about the placing of the vaccines in ILR. So finally, for your exams, you can remember that this is what is the standard guidelines. This is directly snapshot taken from the immunization module for medical officers by Government of India, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Vaccines which are sensitive to heat is in this order, and the vaccine which are sensitive to freezing are in this order. So this you can remember for your exam. We have already discussed this. Next is that on an ice pack, which is there inside the vaccine carriers, right? So there would be some vaccines which are put on the ice packs. Which are the vaccines which you will put on the ice packs? So on the ice packs, we will keep which vaccines? The freeze sensitive or the heat sensitive? Common sense, you're going to put the heat sensitive vaccine. Which are the heat sensitive vaccine? The Prime Minister vaccines, the BCG vaccine, the JE vaccine, and the rotavirus vaccine we are going to put on the ice pack. Please note this. Which vaccines are never put along with the ice packs? Common sense, the hepatitis B vaccines, the pneumococcal conjugate vaccines, the TD vaccines, based on the same understanding. But this can be your MCQ beta, which vaccines are put on the ice packs. So which vaccines are put on the ice packs? It is the Japanese encephalitis, the measles, rubella, and the oral polio, along with the BCG. So these vaccines are put on the ice pack. The next topic is topic number 3, that is, what is a vaccine vial monitor? But a vaccine vial monitor is a chemical indicator. It is for what? For the heat sensitivity or the thermal stability or for the freeze stability of the vaccine? What do you want to answer? I think everybody knows it. It is a chemical indicator to tell you about the heat stability. Heat stability of the vaccine, or how much the vaccine has got, is it potent or not potent, and was there a thermal temperature maintenance? That is, it's going to talk about the heating of the vaccine. So the vaccine vial monitor, it is a chemical indicator. MCQ, what could be the chemical name? It is paratoluene sulfonate. It is called as PTS, that is paratoluene sulfonate. So how many types of VVMs do we know? There are many types of VVM. We can have different types: VVM 2, VVM 7, VVM 14, VVM 30. So we can have different types of VVMs. What does all this 2, 7, 14, 30 mean? So basically it tells you that if this is VVM 14, that means in 14 days the vaccine will get spoiled if it is maintained at a temperature of 37 degrees Celsius. So it takes 14 days for the vaccine to get spoiled. That is what is VVM 14 mean. So it tells you about a different thermal stability, or different vaccines will have different types of VVMs. The chemical that is used is paratoluene sulfonate. Next MCQ, how does this vaccine vial monitor look like? So this vaccine vial monitor looks like a circle, and inside the circle there is a square. The square is what is light in color. Okay, always the circle is darker, and inside the square is light in color. If I just show you this picture, can you see the vaccine vial monitor over here? This is what is a vaccine vial monitor. You have an outer circle, inner square. The square is light in color. So let us say that the vaccine was kept at a higher temperature for most of the time. So the square is going to change the color. The outside circle is not going to change the color. So the square will change the color and it will move from light towards darker. At one point, there will be same color. So if it is of a same color, MCQ very frequently asked in your exam that when will you discard the vaccine? Please note that the discard of the vaccine happens when the color is same. Of course, if the color is more darker, you are going to throw it, right? It's a non-potent vaccine. But if it is of the same color, that is what is we call as the discard point. That is what we call as the discard point. Another MCQ about vaccine vial monitor could be that about the location of the vaccine vial monitor. So one is about the color. So you have to see about the grading of the vaccine vial monitor. Another is about the location of the vaccine vial monitor. See, if this is the vaccine, right? So I'm sorry for my drawing, but let us say that this is the label. And on the label, if there is a vaccine vial monitor, if the label has a vaccine vial monitor, that means what? That the label has the vaccine vial monitor. That means once you open the vaccine, you open this vaccine, then you can close this vaccine back again because the VVM was there on the label. So that means you can actually reuse the vaccine. You can reuse the vaccine after opening the vaccine. That is what is a vaccine vial monitor on the label. The vaccine vial monitor can also be on the neck of the ampule. It could also be on the neck of the ampule. It could also be on the cap of the ampule. If it is on the neck or the cap of the ampule, that means once you are opening the vaccine, that means the neck is gone or the cap is gone. So if you're opening the vaccine, please note if the vaccine vial monitor is on the neck or the cap, that means vaccine cannot be reused here. That is what you need to remember for the vaccine vial monitor, the location of the vaccine vial monitor. So coming over to point number 4, what do you mean by a shake test? The shake test is done for all the heat sensitive or the freeze sensitive vaccine. It is done for the freeze sensitive vaccine. So what are the vaccines for which you might do a shake test? Please note, we do it for hepatitis B. We do it for the pneumococcal conjugate vaccine, and we do it for the DPT vaccine or the pentavalent vaccine, all the T series containing vaccine. T series means the tetanus toxoid containing vaccine. So shake test is done how? What is this shake test? See, all the DPT containing vaccines, they contain adjuvant. So DPT, it contains an adjuvant. You remember what was adjuvant? Adjuvant are chemical substances which will increase the immunity, immunoboosters. So they are not like preservatives or stabilizers or things like this. They are immunoboosters. So adjuvant in the DPT vaccine is aluminum hydroxide. It will increase the immunity. The problem with the DPT vaccine is that if you freeze a DPT vaccine, the aluminum hydroxide will precipitate. It will precipitate. If it precipitates the vaccine, the adjuvant is gone. It is precipitated. So if it precipitates, that means whatever liquid you are injecting inside a person, that is just plain water because it is without an immunobooster. So that means you are actually giving a false vaccination, right? So it's a placebo effect. So technically, every time you have to ensure that the vaccine that you are giving does have a temperature maintenance and the aluminum hydroxide has not frozen and there is no precipitation. So what we do is, you can see the shake test over here. What we do is we take always a test vial which we want to test, and we always have a control vial. That is very important for you to understand that there is no different ways of shake test. Shake test is only one way. So you always will make a control vial where you will freeze the vaccine for a couple of hours, for 30 hours or so, and you will let it thaw. Thaw means you do not heat it. You let it come back to the temperature normally, under normal temperatures. So that becomes my control vial. That means I have already spoiled this vaccine. So now it is very easy to understand. You already have a control vaccine and you have a test vial. So you have a control vaccine, right? And that was frozen and was thawed. So you have a control vaccine and you shake that vaccine. Always shaking is never done like this, okay? Never do the shaking. The shaking is always done like this. Why? Because the vaccine you might throw, right? So you take out the test vaccine and there is a control vaccine. You shake them. Now, if the rate of settlement is slower in the test vaccine and the test vial, if it is having a white cloudy liquid and there is no sediments, we may use this vaccine. But if the test vial shows a clear liquid with the sediments means that the aluminum hydroxide had precipitated, so there is clear liquid. See, the normal color of the DPT vaccine is it's a white amorphous color. So if the white amorphous color is retained, it is going to be potent, right? So if it becomes clear, please note this has been like a lot of times students get confused. That sir, the clear liquid was there. Should we throw it or discard it or to use it? Please note clear liquid means where is aluminum hydroxide has precipitated. That means you're going to discard it. This is what is a shake test. Please note it is done for which vaccines? It is done for all the freeze sensitive vaccine. Technically talking is about the DPT, the pentavalent vaccine, the hepatitis B and the pneumococcal, but most importantly we do the shake test for all the T series vaccine, that is pentavalent and the DPT. So that was your point number 4. Coming to point number 5, what do you mean by the open vial policy? I know it's a strange concept for you to hear it for the first time. If you are hearing for the first time, if you've already studied, then you already know it, that what is open vial policy. Please note that under the open vial policy, all vaccines, mind it, what I'm saying, all vaccines can be used till how many days? 28 days. Don't answer 8 hours. All vaccines can be used till 28 days after opening. So all vaccine can be used or reused till 28 days under the Government of India guidelines. Till 28 days we can use all the vaccines after opening, except. So now the question comes, open vial policy is not followed by. Please, that's how the way it is. You have to understand, many times students get confused or they mark the wrong answers. Please note that the vaccines which do not follow the open vial policy, the quote says with the not. So the vaccines which do not follow the open vial policy. What is the open vial policy? All vaccines beta can be used or reused till 28 days after opening the vial. So except which all? So I have just remembered that a small mnemonic, Mera Rota Bichara Jija. So MRBJE. Mera Rota Bichara Jija. That is measles. It's in Hindi, right? Measles, rotavirus, BCG, Japanese encephalitis, and COVID vaccine. So these are the vaccines which are not under the open vial policy. So they have to be consumed at the same time. Why do you think that some vaccines have the open vial policy or some vaccines do not have the open vial policy? Please note that because these vaccines all you can see are the freeze-dried vaccine or they are opened vaccines. So we are at risk of what? Why do we have that these should be used on the same day? Why is there a open vial policy? See, the open vial policy is there for things to be reused. Which vaccines are not under open vial policy? You are not having them under open vial policy because of what? You are scared of what? That's what my question is. You are scared of risk of contamination. MCQ, you are scared of risk of contamination because of which organism? Because of staph infections. Or not infection, we should say staph contamination. Staph contamination of the vaccine, staph contamination, staphylococcus contamination of the vaccine is what scares us for this open vial policy. So in case about the open vial policy, I told you that which all vaccines are there. It is the measles vaccine, it is the JE vaccine, rotavirus vaccine, the BCG vaccine, and the COVID-19 vaccines, right? So measles vaccine should be disposed of in 4 to 6 hours. Best answer to mark is 4 hours. The rotavirus vaccine, same 4 to 6 hours. BCG vaccine, 4 to 6 hours. Best answer always is 4 to 6 hours. If they ask you about COVID-19, see, COVID-19 is a very recently developed new vaccine. We don't even know how it reacts. We don't even know how it stabilizes and things like that. And more research is required. So COVID vaccine, it has been taken. It should be disposed of within 6 to 8 hours of opening. Or within the same session. So in the same session only we are going to use the COVID-19 vaccines. Otherwise it is return unused. Like whatever is there, opened or not opened, you have to return it. So COVID-19, 6 to 8 hours of opening or within the same session, if they are opened, they should be used, consumed within same session. All the COVID-19 which are left over after the session is over should be returned and with label that it is opened and it is still remaining, right? So that is about the COVID-19 vaccines. MCQ can be asked about the Japanese encephalitis. All vaccines should be disposed of at least within 4 to 6 hours, except JE vaccine, which should be disposed of within 2 hours, which should be disposed of within 2 hours. So that means if we just look at the vaccines and the open vial policy in this ILR, you remember that in the ILR at the lower level, we are going to keep the polio measles vaccine, the BCG vaccine. At the top, we are going to keep the T series vaccine, the pentavalent vaccine. Now, if I just zoom into this area, the vaccines which can be used. If I just zoom into this area, the vaccines which can be used, you can see that the open vial, I'll just read it out for you. The open vials of the hepatitis B, the DPT, TTT, pentavalent, all these vaccines can be used, provided the VVM is intact, date of time, and so on. So vial is used within 28 days of opening. That is what is the open vial policy. So which are the vaccines? Can you see this below? The vaccines which are not to be used. So that can be your MCQ. The vaccine which are not to be used, I have just zoomed into that area right now. So you can see that the vaccines which are not to be used are the BCG vaccine, measles, Japanese encephalitis, and the rotavirus, and the COVID-19 vaccine. All empty vials, VVM is not in usable state, or the 28 days have expired vaccines are there. So in those cases, you are not going to use these vaccines. That is what is important from MCQ point of view. So with that understanding, we all know that at the peripheral centers, the open vial policy is there, the ice-lined refrigerators are there and things like these. So the vaccines cannot be stored for more than how much time? They cannot be stored for more than 28 days. Please remember this. Under the open vial policy, they cannot be stored for more than 28 days. Now, because this is there, the examiner will be very clever and asking you that at the storage facilities, what is the storage facility? You remember it was at the walk-in cold rooms or the walk-in freezers. The vaccine should be stored or can be stored for how much time? They can be stored at the district level. Please note, at the district level I'm talking. At the district level, they should not be stored for more than 3 months. If they need more time, they can always send it back to the state level or to the zonal level. India is there, like whole country. We have divided them into 5-6 zones. So each zone will have some states. The states will have the districts. At the district level, what is the time limit for a vaccine to be stored? That is maximum for 3 months. Otherwise, some districts will keep on having the vaccines, other districts will keep on asking for more vaccines. So that just disturbs your EVIN modules. You remember EVIN as the mobile app which is going to help you about the logistics of the vaccine, right? So that is all that you require for most of your questions from this chapter, from this module on cold chain. See you in the next video.
Hi guys, please subscribe my channels.